Well, I've got to plead ignorance. For being the verbose guy that I am, Dominic had wanted to go back to the hotel to get changed. His generation didn't go to the building in just sweatpants or whatever. So we took him over. I had to go back to the Detroit airport, took Dominic back so he could change and shave. And this all transpired as after we had left. When I got back, as we got off the elevator coming from the parking area, the fans were talking about, hey, franchise, hear about what happened with Cornette and Santino. Then the building security started saying the same thing to me. And by the time Dominic and I had made it into the actual hall, everybody, fans, wrestlers, security, anybody that was around was talking about this. And, I'd heard multiple versions during the course of the day, but what seemed to be the common thread amongst all the different stories and perspectives was that in the hallway outside of the arena, Santino had approached Jim Cornette. And if I'm getting something wrong, I apologize. I'm just reiterating what I had heard through multiple different versions of the story. These were the commonalities. Was that Santino had approached Jim Cornette and extended his hand and said, hey, let's let bygones be bygones, or something to that effect. And Corny, as we know he can do, went off. And, especially in light of this being, not to just gratuitously go back to this horrific massacre in Las Vegas, but you can imagine how public buildings like a Cobo Hall would be on extreme high alert for anything outside of the norm. And, of course, when this confrontation happened, security reacted quickly. I had heard varying stories. At one point, I had heard that Detroit's finest was called in and escorted Jim out. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that in a few versions of the story. But it doesn't surprise me because earlier in the day, Jim Cornette's table was, there was a table between mine and his. We were probably 20 feet away from each other, maybe 30 feet. And, Corny had posted something last week on Twitter saying, all you conservatives stay the hell off my Twitter feed or something like that. Well, as a conservative, I walked in completely innocently and jokingly up behind Jim Cornette and put him in a sort of a chin lock and pushed his head forward with my chest and said, you got to be careful when you're talking about conservatives. And he jumped up and we laughed and, joked for a second, and then he started ranting about Donald Trump. And when I say ranting almost in an insane fashion, to the point where Dominic actually said, hey, kid, take it easy, you're going to have a heart attack. And, so Jim was ramped up from the beginning. I don't think the joke from me was what set him off, but it seemed to me that Jim was wound tight prior to that. And, from the politics thing, that went on for a while inside the building. And then after we left, of course, this thing with Santino. The only thing other additional to add to that, what I had said previously, is that the promoter had said to me, because some of the building security had said to me that they were working on trying to get Cornette back in the building. And when I went and asked the promoter, are they going to get him back into the building? He said, no, there's no chance of that. And they had to take Santino out too because they were afraid that, Cornette would come back and say, you discriminated against me, why not him, whatever. I don't know who instigated. I wasn't there. The thing that I heard repeatedly from fans and from some of the boys that had seen it was what I had said, that Santino had extended his hand and Cornette said he'd slap him in the face again. I said, I'm completely oblivious to what happened in Ohio Valley, but apparently there was some kind of confrontation in Ohio Valley Wrestling a year and a half or 2.5 years ago, whatever it was. And this was
much longer than that. No. We're talking 12, 13 years. This is much longer than that. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's way, way deep-rooted. So I'll just give you the overall gist of it.
Yeah.
They had so Santino was a student in Ohio Valley Wrestling. He, they were establishing his character he was working on at the time. The debut of the Boogeyman. Okay, you know the Boogeyman, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Boogeyman was debuting on TV, and they put Santino in the crowd. And I guess, the debut was supposed to be somewhat of a spectacularly haunting, display, and Santino was seen laughing at ringside. So when Cornette got him in the back, he slapped the shit out of him. And, it basically led to Cornette's dismissal from WWE. And it's gone on ever since. Cornette has not hid his feelings from Santino, calling him, a joke character, and he's slapped the shit out of him again if he ever sees him. So basically, this was brewing. But Santino, from what I had heard and what people who were there told me, was that he said, extend my hand, and Cornette said, I'll slap the shit out of you again. And the video that surfaced, Cornette tries to walk away, and Santino continues to move towards him. So obviously, Shane, that's a little bit of an aggressive move. So would you feel Santino was in the wrong to not himself just, if he didn't get the handshake, just walk away? You can go bitch about it, but just walk away.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time, there's a time to confront and there's a time to not. And, like I said, it was pretty clear to me after my joking comments with Jim about politics, how he said on, so I mean, it was pretty easy for me to read that. Dominic clearly read it. I would think that anybody would be able to see that. But again, I didn't see the video. To me, we all know Jim Cornette. And when Jim's to that level and he's got an audience watching, he's not going to calm down and say, okay, buddy, let's be friends. So if Santino moved toward him at that point, either he was being aggressive or, not aware of Jim's past and his personality. To me, my takeaway, though, beyond who was at fault, who wasn't at fault, is, and this goes back to what we had said earlier about Dominic training us properly. We're there booked on a show that the promoter had put up a lot of money of his own personal money to put this show on. A lot of fans had come there to see people like Jim Cornette and Santino. So to allow something like this to get so out of hand that two of the people that the fans are coming to see are thrown out, to me is beyond the pale of professionalism. Because if you, it's one thing if you flew yourself in and you're appearing there on your own dime or whatever. And I don't know either one's situation as to what deal they had worked out with the promoter. But to me, you're there for an event. I've walked into an awful lot of buildings with people I didn't necessarily care for over my career, but it wasn't my place to get myself thrown out or get the person who I didn't care for thrown out. We're there to provide something to the fans and on a closer level to be professional with the promoter that's paid to bring us in. So whichever was at fault, both of them, whichever it was Cornette, Santino, but ultimately both of them bear some responsibility, as sometimes the big boys in the room say it's time to just stay away from each other, and the fans don't get screwed, the promoter doesn't get screwed, and God forbid that somebody ends up in jail for the night, because I wouldn't think that being in jail in Detroit would be a fairly fun thing to go through. So that's my little soapbox on the side of that. Again, I didn't witness any of it. Dominic and I were outside the building. These were the things that I heard when I'd gotten back. So I had no idea it had even been that long from Ohio Valley. I thought it was a few years ago.